Welcome to Wrasslin' Raw! All right, you're listening to Wrasslin' Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
It's knuckle up time.
Joe Giammatteo.
Uh-oh, here comes the anvil.
Bwah, 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 bwah. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin' Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on July 14th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and later on, Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. We started this episode off literally pretending like last week's Raw never happened. This was a cinematic video package that you would typically get on the Raw after a pay-per-view, and it was very gracious in the way that it completely skipped and ignored all of the cheering that the Hart Foundation received in Edmonton last week. But here in San Antonio, the Hart Foundation were out as soon as that official intro was over with, coming down to a chorus of boos, but still not quite as loudly as the Canadian fans were cheering them. So that was something that I noticed right off the bat. Vince was there in the ring to give the prompting questions, and I would like to think that the fans were really just booing him, because that's what I would have been booing if I'd been there. Vince wanted to be a nitpicking dickbag when it came to the stipulations about Bret Hart's upcoming title challenge, jumping on a chance to correct Bret about Bret never wrestling on American soil again if he loses. And this crowd, it never gave an inch with Bret. The haranguing never ended. The interview moved over to Owen then. Owen wasn't too worried about that upcoming IC title match with Steve Austin. Owen has some blistex there because Austin will have to kiss Owen's ass if Austin loses. But then it was the Bulldog's turn, and this is where it got ridiculous. The Bulldog is now saying that if he loses his European title to Ken Shamrock, the Bulldog will eat a can of dog food. And then after that, Brian Pillman name drops Dusty Rhodes 6 or 7 times in a sentence to try to get us sympathetic for the babyface Goldust. They're having a match where I guess if Pillman loses, he'll have to wear one of Marlena's dresses. And they saved the worst for last. Vince goes to the Anvil to see what the Anvil's going to be doing at Summerslam. The answer is nothing, because he's not going to be wrestling there, thank God. But on Raw the following night, if any of the Hart Foundation loses, the Anvil will shave his goatee on Raw the following night. So a whole bunch of stuff going on there. Just as Bret was doing his best to repair that whole situation, the glass broke and Stone Cold Steve Austin stepped out at the top of the ramp. But then Ken Shamrock comes out, dressed all in black. And then the Patriot? And then Psycho Sid? And Shawn Michaels? What? Shawn made sure to differentiate himself by being the only one wearing white and taking a few steps out in front of everyone there to ham it up at the top of the ramp. We broke to commercial, got some info that the $1 million giveaway has entry forms that you can get at any Discovery Zone. And I have a feeling that that might be why we never fucking heard of it, because I've never fucking heard of Discovery Zone.
You haven't?
No, not at all. We also got a quick video package of the headbangers on a golf course with the cryptic statement that that might be the next clue in that $1 million giveaway. And that was it for the opening segment. It was a doozy. Things started off great with Bret Hart out there getting some heat, but in my opinion, things kind of went downhill with all of these extra match stipulations, the fucking Patriot coming out of nowhere, Psycho Sid coming in from the outfield, and Shawn Michaels, who really looked like that whole thing was improvised. But anyway, Joe, can you please help us to untangle this mess that we started with?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything you said there. It was a pretty good intro to the show, kind of a good reminder for us that, hey, these guys are heels, meaning the Hart Foundation. So we are reminded, even though the past couple shows we've watched have been in Canada, so we had to be reminded of that, which is nice. Started out really hot. Bret Hart has a lot of heat with this crowd. Owen was fantastic. And then, like you said, it kind of got a little goofy. We talk about eating dog food and wearing dresses and shaving goatees. Ken Shamrock comes out, apparently didn't get the memo that Steve Austin also wears all black, and they looked fucking ridiculous standing next to each other.
I was wondering, was that just to try and play up is he his tag team partner tonight? But
yeah, and then all these other clowns come out, so it's like, okay. Like, it was very strange. I didn't necessarily hate it, but I just thought it was really weird. Austin didn't seem to mind that these guys were out there with him either, standing on the top of the ramp, which is a little out of character. Yeah, just fucking weird, man. The Patriot, like, what the fuck? Who is this guy, you know? Yeah. Like, we obviously know who he is, but, like, at this point, we don't. So
right. He comes out like we should.
Yeah.
A lot must have happened on Shotgun Saturday Night that we missed.
Yeah.
The Hart Foundation stuff is very good. It's a lot of heat. Brett is doing a great job. Owen and the other guys are pretty good supporting cast. But we're leaning a little too much into this patriotism stuff. Like, it's just, we're leaning a little too much into it.
Yeah, I'd agree. You know, the Hart Foundation, they did a good job at the beginning here, coming down, reestablishing the fact that they are the true top heels here in the WWF now that we're back in the US. And I really love the comment from Brett right at the beginning. He says, unlike here in Texas, Alberta, Canada is rat-free. And I don't know if you guys know, but this is a real thing. Alberta decided in 1950 to eradicate all rats from the province and created the Rat Control Program. The program includes teams of armed men on patrol at the border. Citizens are required to trap and poison and kill the rats, and hefty fines are put on them if they don't. And the program goes to today. They still consider themselves a rat-free zone. I thought that was really cool, that Brett brought that up. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Discovery Zone.
No,
right.
Not to be. Everyone did do a great job. Brett, Owen, both of them setting up their matches at SummerSlam was great. And just like the two of you, the moment Bulldog started talking about eating dog food, I was like, what? Where the fuck is this going? And then Pillman with the dress and then Anvil, I was, it got saved by the realizing he doesn't actually have a match. And his stipulation is, I'm going to shave my beard if anyone loses or I show up on SummerSlam. Stone Cold coming out, of course, the crowd went crazy the moment his glass breaks and it interrupts the Hart Foundation. But once we get Ken Shamrock and the Patriot, and then where the fuck did Sid come from in plain clothes? Was there a break in the softball schedule or something? He just makes a quick cameo is basically all he does here because we don't see him the rest of the show. And then, of course, Shawn Michaels comes out and tries to steal all of the thunder from everyone. So it was a very solid segment, not quite as good as last week's because they kind of went off into the crazy a little bit, but still a very, very strong way to start Raw off.
Yeah, I'm still just hung up on the Patriot because that's a hell of a thing to just spring on you here at the beginning of an episode of Raw. I mean, there was no backstory there at all. We've had just a week between the last Raw and this. We've had Superstars and Shotgun Saturday Night where he could have debuted, and you'd think that with all of the old footage they like going over here in these episodes of Raw, you'd think that we'd get his debut somewhere or something other than just him randomly walking up next to Steve Austin.
Something tells me over the next month or so we're going to find out why we didn't get that backstory. Okay. I have a feeling the Patriot's going to kind of suck.
Well, speaking of things that are going to kind of suck, let's go to our first match of the night. Ivan and Scott Putski defeat Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher by pinfall in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. The volume on the house PA was cranked at the start of this. I could barely hear commentary over the sound of Jerry Lawler's entrance music. And this started with the Putskis coming out to clear the ring. I caught myself walking into the other room and then coming back. I was hoping that maybe they were trying to clear me out too, but that wasn't the case. I had to sit back down and watch this. Unfortunately, Ivan Putski got things started by singing a song that might have been appropriate 30 years prior to this. It just kept going and going. I understand the need for a nostalgia pop here, but good God, took forever. Once things got going, the world's worst referee, Earl Hebner, blatantly allowed Lawler and Christopher to double-team Scott Putski in front of him and then stopped Ivan from getting in the ring while the double-team continued. Scott Putski hasn't gotten any better. just like Ivan Putski hasn't gotten any younger.
Ooh.
Things were cruising along up until Brian Christopher stopped Lawler from getting the pin, and I was immediately enraged because I wanted this to be fucking over. And we did eventually get to the weakest Polish hammer ever fucking executed. That gave Ivan the pin on Lawler. Thankfully, nobody stuck around to draw things out. And that's it. This was just as terrible as I expected it to be. And I don't know about you guys, I would definitely have changed the channel here. Joe, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. As soon as we saw singing in the ring there, I probably would have changed it for sure. The Texas fans, they hated it, and so did I. As far as the match goes, I feel like at the beginning, I was thinking to myself, Ivan Putski did they say he's a Hall of Famer? I think
Yes.
they said he's a Hall of Famer. So, he was a popular wrestler in his prime. You'd think that maybe he would tell his son to, slow the fuck down. But then when I saw Ivan get in the ring, I thought, okay, this is why he's not telling him ever to slow down, because this guy, I imagine he was like the ultimate warrior of the 70s. Just fucking 100 miles an hour, terrible, just not good. And he's obviously like probably in his 50s here, I would guess.
At least.
Yeah. A couple positive notes, though. Best pile driver ever is Jerry Lawler. I mean, it's so textbook every time. So I do enjoy seeing that from Jerry Lawler. And I do have to say, I mean, this match was not anything exciting at all. But I do think it was laid out pretty well, considering who was there. They had that hot tag set up for Ivan. So he really wasn't in the ring for very long. So I think they laid it out pretty well, but it was certainly not a highlight and not going to keep me tuned in.
Well, Joe thinks that's a match of the year. What'd you think, Ryan?
Yeah.
I'll give Lawler and Brian Christopher a little bit of credit. They got some heat out of this crowd, but that's about as far as it can go. Because Ivan Putski, man, when he got in there, it's pretty clear, like you stated, Joe, kind of like the Ultimate Warrior. He was popular because he was built like a Polish tank, and he's not anymore. He's old, and his gas tank is completely empty. And now he just kind of looked like a weird, old, saggy-skinned old guy in there. And it didn't go over well. He can't use his physique to get himself over, and thankfully wasn't in there long because it was set up well. It was set up for this type of a bullshit quick match, but pretty forgettable all around by everyone involved, to be honest.
Yeah, the less said about that match, the better, so let's keep it going. Next up, we had a video review of that match between Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Stone Cold Steve Austin, where Stone Cold, in the end, rejects Mankind as a tag team partner. Immediately after, we went to Mankind for comment. Mankind was sitting in some kind of boiler room type area, but had no comment. He was just in the dark, rocking back and forth. After that, some new Stride X material. They really wanted to highlight Owen Hart beating Flash Funk on Shotgun Saturday Night, and they gave us 3 different angles of that. Up next, Paul Bearer. He cuts a promo about young Kane's stolen innocence and asserts that next week Paul Bearer is going to prove that Kane is still around. This was a real short one, so I'll just ask you guys briefly, and we'll do Ryan first here. What do you think about Paul Bearer's promo here?
It was a good, solid promo. It's kind of what we've been getting out of Paul. We go to him to just give us little tidbits about this story to just further it along a little bit more and more every week.
Yeah, like I said, just keep mentioning that name, Kane, drill it into our brains.
Yeah.
Paul says he's going to prove next week that Kane is still alive, so that's going to have us tune in, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I'll be tuning in, so. All right, let's go to our next match. Taka Michinoku defeats Yoshihiro Tajiri by pinfall in 3 minutes and 50 seconds. They were calling him Tajiri Yoshihiro in this match, but that's not his real name. But Tajiri, he's a former Jobber of the Week, isn't he, Ryan?
He is. Tajiri was our Jobber of the Week in our April 22nd, 1996 episode of Wrasslin Raw. So go back to there if you want to hear that.
Damn, a whole year ago at this point. I couldn't get past commentary saying Tajiri's name backwards. I wasn't sure what that was
I
about.
couldn't either. I don't know why it bothered me, but it did, yeah.
Just to give you a little bit of a reason why that might have happened, because I remember when I did his Jobber of the Week, he was billed as both at one point.
Okay.
So there's the answer.
Well, we ignorant Americans don't know the difference between a first and last name in Japan, I guess. So
No.
they're just interchangeable. It's not like it's going to jump out like, hi, this is Smith John. The crowd, they weren't really impressed with the opening sequences, and honestly, I couldn't blame them at the start, with the exception of that shooting star press from the top turnbuckle that Taka's been doing. Everything else just looked kind of slow and mechanical. It seemed like there were quite a few miscommunications, which, in this case, I remember calling this out whenever we were doing the Lucha Libre stuff before. I think it's hilarious with non-English speaking competitors. They could be spot calling this entire match in Japanese at regular volumes and nobody in the front rows would be the wiser. So I don't understand how this was able to look as sloppy as it did. I did like the snap German suplex from Tajiri. That was good. And it was also good to see Taka fucking win with the Michinoku driver. Finally. And that's it. That's all I had for this one. Not quite as entertaining as Taka's matches against Sasuke, especially given how disjointed this one looked. But Joe, it made me think of you calling that last match a spot fest. And I felt like here, this was an attempt at a spot fest, and it didn't quite get pulled off as well. But I was happy to see both of these guys in the ring. I've always liked them. So, Ryan, what'd you have on this match?
I agree this wasn't the smoothest, especially at the beginning. They were really out of sync for the first minute of this match, and it did pick up. They did get a little bit better. It got a little bit more smooth, but it never got to where the Taka Great Suzuki match got to. By the end of this match, it's clear, as we've been stating for weeks now, Taka is their guy. You know, they started it off with a little brief video package explaining who he is, and, you know, then he gets to land his finisher and get the victory here. But it does really make you ask, why did he job out twice to the Great Suzuki if he was the one that we were going to keep and keep around and actually compete in this light heavyweight division? But yeah, this one not nearly as smooth as the others, but still, I think, better than a Brian Christopher Putski match.
Yeah, I probably would not describe this one as a spot fest. They're smaller guys, but I would probably describe this as more stiff, strong style type wrestling. And, you know, there were some of the mistakes made too, so that made it look even more stiff at times. So I didn't think it was bad, but it was not as good. I agree. And, you know, Ryan, you mentioned something, I think, when we watched those other two Taka matches. Why didn't they give Taka this type of TV time before that pay-per-view? I mean,
it all seems backwards.
Yeah, exactly. They want us to like this Taka guy, but you know, that's very clear, but he just lost twice to this other guy. So, yeah, you're right. It just seems backwards. It's not really going to have that much of an impact on his career, but just kind of a mishandling of debuting a guy like this, especially a young guy. You know, another thing I noticed during this match was you guys don't really watch too much modern wrestling, but you've probably heard of a guy named Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, sure.
I can tell a guy like Daniel Bryan was probably heavily influenced by guys like this. He kind of worked that same style, maybe not as much of the high flying, but kind of worked that stiff, strong style a little bit. And Bartlett, I agree that if you're talking about Taka's springboard that he does from the top rope, that is always really impressive. And especially for the live crowds, that's probably really cool.
Yeah. With the way that they're building up Taka here, or kind of reverse building him up, depending on how you want to look at it, the only thing I can think of is I could have sworn that I've heard people like Pritchard and Cornette talk about whenever you're debuting new guys that you want to get over as a babyface, you have to knock them down first because they need a place to climb up from, as if climbing up from being a rookie isn't enough already. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with the whole climb up from, you know, point of view, but that's the only thing I could think of.
I mean, just taking it to how they introduce other people they want to project as a star.
Like the Patriot.
Yes, like the Patriot. You know, you would have them maybe lose their first feud against their big star, but not the little guys building up to that match. That, you know, that's, you build the guy, you have him squash some jobbers, and then maybe he loses to, you know, struggling with coming up with a name of someone in the light heavyweight heavyweight division he could lose to after a feud, but you get what I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to build your light heavyweight around this guy, then why would you have him lose?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, Brian Christopher is obviously an important part of that, too.
Well, he's got another little important feud that he's in, so...
Well, I think you make a really good point with that, Joe. If you're setting up a new division, you have to establish at the start who's the guy that's going to be getting chased. If you're going to have a roster of, we'll say,
or at least the top two, really. You need...
Yeah, your number one contender, yeah.
You don't have the roster that WCW has. You don't have Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko. You don't have a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
So, got to build it around them.
Well, let's keep it moving here. We were going to go to backstage with Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was looking very pleased with himself whenever he was saying that he's not Stone Cold Steve Austin's partner in that upcoming tag title match, because, of course, that's the only thing that Vince wants to ask anybody about. Poor Ken, he's still learning how to cut a promo, so I'll forgive how scripted his promo sounded. He is improving, but still just kind of dead. Ken's going to be in action a little bit later against Jim Neidhart. Hey, speaking of dead, that's going to be a little bit of a stinker, I think. But then we went to Los Boricuas entering the arena. They've turned the corner from full Clockwork Orange to full-fledged ethnic stereotype now, rolling in on an Aztec-themed lowrider.
Pretty sweet seats in that. The interior was off the chart.
It was just a gorgeous car, but the whole picture couldn't scream
no
Latino gang any louder.
We make movies, pal.
Yeah. Apparently there's going to be an article about the loose cannon Brian Pillman in the upcoming issue of Raw magazine, so hopefully somebody out there got to read that when it came out. And that's where this ended. We had that promo from Shamrock and Los Boricuas getting their new look. Joe, what'd you think of this?
Well, Shamrock delivers some terrible news that he's going to be facing the Anvil later, so that's a bummer. We'll just keep it tuned into TNT, I guess.
Yeah,
later
thanks
on.
for the warning, Ken.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all I could think of during the lowrider part was just like I said, we make movies, pal.
Yeah, Shamrock, he's struggling on the mic right now. This was not great. The old, it'll be knuckle up time. It sounded just so generic and, man, I don't know what the word is for secondhand embarrassment or cringe, but that was what I was getting off of him delivering those lines. Savio in the lowrider, I've mentioned it the first time Team Savio showed up that they remind me of the gangs from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and it continues with
this really, time it really came off the screen like that, with these two random women too. Like,
just everything about it.
Yeah.
All right, well that took us into our next match. Los Boricuas, this being Jose Estrada and Miguel Perez, with Jesus Castillo and Savio Vega on the outside, defeat the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, by pinfall in 4 minutes and 26 seconds. Are either of you fans of the Adult Swim show Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
I may have been like 20 years ago back in college,
Yeah, I would not call myself a fan, no.
My first note here was that Los Boricuas entrance music sounds like it was a rap by MC Pee Pants from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That little Satan spider thing that hangs out. Yeah. Sounds just like it.
I'll have to pay attention to that.
Sounds just like it. We still have not got an introduction of who is in Los Boricuas. Commentary says their names, but they have left it entirely up to us to figure out who is who.
And here they are in a match.
Aside from Savio, they have no problems throwing their names out here, which they didn't before, so I guess that's a little bit of an improvement, but still no camera shot on one man. Oh, hey, that's Jesus. Thank you. None of that. This wasn't exciting at all. I think this might have been a piss break match for the crowd. Of course, we got to a point where the official was giving a little latitude in the rules. That just means that the rules don't fucking matter when it comes to double teaming in the WWF. And then when the finish came, so did the fucking disciples of the Honey Dipper.
Ooh.
It's a good thing those roadies were there to move the ring stairs out of the way. There was plenty of time for people to leave while the motorcycles were making their way around the ring. But instead, there was a dust-up in the ring until Los Boricuas decided to leave. Man. Joe, we're not really doing too well with matches so far tonight. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, it's horrible. Headbangers. One of them looked like he might have legit injured himself at some point. He kept coughing. I think he smacked his throat on the ropes or something. Like, he couldn't stop coughing after a certain point, unless he was just working that. I don't know, but that was a little distracting. And yeah, then we get the fucking motorcycles, so it just sucks, you know? They're going for this movie gang war bar fight type stuff, and it's just so fucking terrible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is not how it should be done. I mean, I'm thankful that we're giving tag team matches their day in the sun here. It seems like that's all we're going to get, since this is going to end with the conclusion to the tag team tournament. But really, my biggest takeaway is Miguel Perez has no business wearing a tank top with all that body hair.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't have much room to talk, but I don't walk around in fucking tank tops. So that needs to stop, because I almost puked.
Oh, those women were all over him earlier, though. So
yeah, well, they couldn't get away. It was like Velcro.
Oh, God. Ugh.
I have to end this on, once the fucking Honey Dippers came out, the San Antonio crowd, they're getting thrown right in there with the Canadian crowd. They were cheering the fuck out of the disciples of the Honey Dippers. This is
really
unacceptable.
Disappointing. Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, I obviously couldn't take any of this seriously, but one thing I did think of while I was watching it is it would be neat if maybe we could write a parody song, kind of like along the lines of Jackson Browne's Stay, for the disciples of the Honey Dipper, like, and the roadies move the stairs, and the bikes come down in line,
and they gas out the crowd.
All right, hey, maybe it'll get better. Let's go backstage with the Patriot. Whoops, never mind.
My name's the Patriot.
He's not here. Yeah, he's not here to tag with Steve Austin. He's here to defend America. And man, he has about the most shit-kicking redneck America accent I have ever heard. We like to poke fun at, like last week, Ryan, you were poking fun at Brian Christopher's Tennessee accent, but this bastard.
I think that was Joe, but.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. This was.
We can all agree that this is by far the worst yet.
Yeah, it was
I would
funny.
hope. God.
Well, and I guess he's huge in Japan, so maybe that's the deal, is he really plays it up over
like
in Japan.
Mr. Big.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn Michaels is still lurking around backstage there. He might be Austin's new partner, or Austin's old partner, if he's able to work. We're not sure what's going on there quite yet. But we will find out, as Vince was loosening up his goozle to receive Shawn Michaels in the ring for an interview. Shawn's entrance went on forever. And once Shawn was in the ring and Vince was properly lubed up, Vince went straight to the question of whether or not Shawn Michaels, the man who had won the belts with Steve Austin, was going to be Steve Austin's tag team partner tonight. Shawn says that even though he's not 100%, he's good to go right now. But whether or not he's Austin's partner will be up to Austin. Michaels calls Vince the boss man and says it's up to Vince whether Shawn will be at SummerSlam, and then Shawn takes off his shirt, gets on his knees, and just starts working it towards Vince there. You could see Vince turning bright red because you know what Vince wanted in that moment.
Give it to me.
Shawn says that he'll do anything to be at SummerSlam, and you can see the gears turning in Vince's head.
Anything?
My goozle is ready.
Thinking up what kind of payoff settlement he can come up with for this one. Because Shawn, he's willing to bet that The Undertaker is going to be winning that championship match, and Shawn wants to see Bret Hart get the hell out of America. Vince didn't really have anything to add to that except roaring, "Shawn Michaels!" and then spooning Michaels as Michaels stripped in the ring. Vince McMahon's homoerotic fantasy is what took us into the second hour in Raw is War. That was with Savio running out to one of the handheld camera people, because I guess a terrible accident happened in the back. Couldn't have been that bad. I mean, he wasn't running for, say, medics or security, but he did get that cameraman. And we eventually caught up with Savio and the cameraman. And the thing that Savio wanted us to see was that one of Los Boricuas was hitting one of DOA's bikes with a garbage can. DOA showed up just moments after the camera did. That devolved into a brawl, and I didn't want to see any of it. There was an annoying ass car alarm going on out there. Los Boricuas drove away, dragging DOA's bike, behind their Aztec car. Crush was upset about that. I hated it all. The last clip of this whole segment was Crush threatening that DOA would swim to Puerto Rico to get Savio. Fucking moron.
Please do it.
Yeah.
Ryan, we had a lot going on in this segment. Shawn Michaels back on our screens, gang warfare escalating. What did you think of all this?
Yeah, Shawn Michaels back on our screen. He's just coming down for an interview, but he still gets a full striptease entrance, probably at request of Vince, would be my guess, because what happens next was pretty hilarious. The way Shawn Michaels just gets down on his knees. And really, we've had times in the past where someone has addressed Vince as the owner, but I think this is the first time someone actually pleads to him about a match, as in like he has all control of everything and calling him boss man and all of that. That was kind of a new thing and something we're going to see a little bit more of later this year. But Vince just, man, he couldn't cover up how much he wanted this. At the end, it was hilarious. Shawn started to do his trying to take off his pants, and Vince runs over and kind of blushes and covers him up, and it was so hilarious to watch. And then Savio coming out and getting the camera. I knew this wasn't going to end well because it had to be something to do with the dipshits. And sure enough, we go out into a garage, and this was a very, very weak garage brawl. No one actually got hit with anything. At one point, one of the Nazi fuck brothers just slams a 2x4 on the ground.
Yeah.
It was just weak as all hell. These two pitiful factions need to be forgotten about immediately.
Yeah, lots of really horrible stuff here. The Patriot promo leads us into Shawn and Vince in the ring, and my God, what a sight, the whole thing. Just, I threw up a little bit, honestly, because Vince makes me sick. Vince doing this aw shucks act that he's doing is just, it's fucking terrible.
Almost coquettish.
Yeah. Yeah, just really bad. I hated that whole thing. Savio screaming at the camera, like you said, Ryan, you knew it was going to lead to something really bad, and it was. Dragging the bike was actually not a terrible part of this. Maybe that's all they should have done instead of that fake-ass brawl. Lead those idiots back there and then drag their bike,
That
and then
would
that's
have been
it.
enough. Yep.
But no, we had to have this terrible brawl.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's keep it going on an upswing, right? Let's go to our next match. Ken Shamrock defeats Jim the Anvil Neidhart by submission in 4 minutes and 41 seconds. There was a sign in the crowd saying Bret Hart humps cows.
I saw that.
I thought that was pretty nice. And I thoroughly enjoyed the fact that the opening sequences here were just the Anvil letting Shamrock hook him and work him. Because they rolled around in the ring. It was Shamrock doing various, Ryan, maybe you can help me with this, whenever you move from one position to another quickly, from hold to hold.
Yeah, just the transition.
Transition, okay. Well, he was transitioning all over the Anvil here at the starts, with the Anvil putting up 0 resistance. That quickly ended, though, as Jim tried to work. But as we've previously noted, Jim Neidhart in 1997 is absolute fucking trash. He can't even work an arm drag takedown. This is a rhetorical question, but why does the Anvil constantly look like he's straining to take a shit? He's always huffing and puffing, and looks like maybe it might be something from Taco Bell, the way that he's blowing. It's burning a little bit maybe. And I was inspired to come up with the line, Jim Neidhart couldn't work a fucking straw, let alone any kind of wrestling move. And then this match was over with a standing headlock submission. How fucking weak was that? The Bulldog came out afterwards. The Anvil was miraculously okay at that point. Kenny got double teamed. Then the Patriot came out, and it was even more terrible. Everything was just getting telegraphed there. And that's where this ended. Man, we are 0 for 4 for matches tonight, Ryan. There hasn't been a good one yet. What'd you think of this?
Yep, this one isn't going to save that pattern, unfortunately. And, I don't understand why they decided to hobble Ken Shamrock with so many terrible wrestlers out of the gate.
Yeah.
You would think someone like Ken already has the name recognition, is a legit badass. You'd think you'd try and build him up with some good wrestlers, get the crowd behind him before you, not expose him, but you almost do. Because some of these moves that he tried to do on the anvil here just looked terrible because the anvil didn't know how to work with someone like Ken. And it just looked terrible. And then, of course, 2 minutes into it, the anvil is doing rest holds and sucking for air. That's all we really get out of him. And then out of nowhere, he taps to a very simple submission move by Shamrock. So kind of jobs out here, doesn't make Shamrock look good, doesn't make the Hart Foundation look good. And then the bullshit at the end with Bulldog and the Patriot. I don't care.
Yeah, Anvil sucks so bad, and he's basically just getting jobbed out here. He comes out by himself. Bulldog didn't even make an appearance until after the match was over. The best part of this was Jim Ross yelling that Shamrock has been manhandled by 2 men.
I take it you're done, Joe, because that's,
yeah,
there's not much else to say there, except, and I thought of this, Ryan, while you were giving your comments, at least we do not have Ken defending the honor of women.
That's true.
Because they started that for like a week.
Yeah, they did.
Things were going on and he didn't like it. He didn't like it one bit.
Yeah.
But that would have been great if that led to like a match against Triple H.
Right, but I think where they were aiming that to go is Mark Marrow. And the longer we put that off, the better.
Which is the last thing we want to see.
Right. Something that's better than Mark Marrow, infinitely better, so much so that he wouldn't work with him. Let's go to Mankind, again, backstage.
Just him rocking in a boiler room. That's better than anything Mark Marrow has ever done.
Not even with a light on him. It might have been an imposter there. We don't know because it was just the silhouette. Mankind, he still does not want to talk to anybody, so we got another video replay of what's happened in the preceding weeks to get to where we're at today. We also got more details on the WWF's most recent data harvesting scheme, that $1 million chance competition for SummerSlam. I guess there are 4 clues total, and there will be 4 finalists. 2 will be called prior to SummerSlam, and then those two will be at SummerSlam, but then 2 will be called on the Raw after SummerSlam. Someone at some point will be given a key that may or may not open a casket full of cash. This was so fucking convoluted. And then it went to today's clue, which was the headbangers getting struck by lightning on a golf course, and then that same guy from before coming up and saying life while winking. And that's where that ended. Joe, you wouldn't happen to have any more information on this confusing $1 million giveaway, or maybe a more clear interpretation of the rules that they tried to give us here?
No, I'll be honest. I actually have nothing to say about any of it. I have no notes on anything. I have no fucking clue what's going on.
Yeah, I was just as dumbfounded. I feel like the only way I could make sense of this is I need one of those conspiracy boards with the string and pens everywhere. That's the only way I could make sense of what they were trying to explain about this. Which doesn't give me a good feeling about this not being a complete scam.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, so that's what I thought after hearing this explanation. I was like, what fucking wrestling fan has the attention span to pay attention to this description, let alone understand it? I really think that they're banking on nobody winning it, or making it so confusing that the only people that do enter it don't have any kind of chance of winning, and then maybe they can give the casket key to a patsy or something. I don't know.
In my head, I just keep on thinking someone's going to put the wrong key in there, turn it. They're going to hear the Price is Right, ba-bum, ba-bum sound, and it's going to be the Undertaker. He comes out, choke slams them, they lose.
Yeah. One can only hope. Let's keep it going to our next match. The Legion of Doom versus the New Blackjacks ends in a no contest in 0 seconds. This match never had a chance to get started because the Godwins showed up to give LOD some honestly really weak looking chair shots on the entry ramp. And that was it. We broke the commercial and then came back to our next match. Vader with Paul Bearer defeats Flash Funk by pinfall in 4 minutes and 11 seconds. The match hadn't even started yet, and Vader looked fucking terrible. Commentary let us know that it's up to the WWF officials, namely Gorilla Monsoon, to determine who Stone Cold Steve Austin's partner would be in that tag title match later on. At one point, Jim Ross calls Flash Funk Too Cold Scorpio. I thought that was funny.
I'm glad you pointed that out because he gets a lot of shit for doing that now. But guess what? He was doing it then.
That's
too.
exactly what I thought too. It was like, this is nothing new, folks.
Yeah.
Give him some fucking slack.
You've got guys that have careers with like dozens of names.
6 different companies and
Kip
right.
Sop and what the fuck ever.
I could never get on the bandwagon of ragging him for it because I know it's exactly what I would do. I do the exact same type of shit all the time. So,
well, in this match, Vader ended up winning with a power bomb. After the victory, Paul Bearer got in the ring and ordered a Vader bomb for Flash Funk on top of the insult to injury there. And that was it for this 0 for 5 in matches, if we're not counting that LOD debacle. Joe, what'd you have on the attempted LOD match and then this Vader match?
Well, for the attempted match, the Blackjacks, man, they really give me big Village People vibes now when they come out. I mean, it just looks ridiculous.
Those mustaches.
Yeah, the chaps, the mustaches, the whole thing, just very strange. Hawk getting busted open. I wonder if I don't know if that was a work or what that was. Maybe that's why the match didn't happen. I'm not sure what happened there. I didn't see anything in the Observer either, so no idea. Flash Funk versus Vader. At least we don't have Vader in the main event scene right now, so I guess we can be happy for that. He's sort of getting a little push here, but not a lot. It seems like they're just kind of using him for that Kane story right now, just to get more Paul Bearer out there. So I guess that's okay.
Yeah, the whole thing with the Blackjack LOD match, I almost feel like that Hawk did actually just get injured and they had to do a swerve here and try and hobble it back together, because out of all of the matches we've had so far, the LOD is really the biggest crowd pleaser we got, and they only got him for 2 seconds here until the shirtless Godwins came out and attacked them from behind. Yeah, I don't know, Joe, you said you didn't have any news about that. I was kind of hoping that you had something because I wasn't sure if this was just part of the work or if they really did have to just call this match because of a possible concussion and injury. But the Flash Funk Vader, I'm going to point out things that aren't really about the match. One of them, I'm glad to see they worked Vader's intro footage to have the image of him grabbing that Saudi interviewer that put him in jail. That's kind of nice. And we also, this was one of those, little tidbits that JR likes to drop, that Vader and Flash Funk are very familiar with each other because Vader took Funk to Japan to train in the dojos with him. So I would have thought that type of familiarity with each other would have led to maybe a better match. But I think that's more up to Vader and his refusal to sell for anyone, including a friend, it appears. So short match. Flash Funk continues to get squashed here, and it looks like they're maybe trying to make Vader look a little bit like a monster again, but they've already ruined that. So I'm pretty tired of Vader, honestly. I'm not quite to go home heat yet, but the less I see of him, the better, probably. After that, we went backstage with Steve Austin, where Austin once again reiterates for the 93,000th time that he does not fucking care who his partner is. How many times are we going to ask him that? Thankfully, that we're going to get an answer to as we go into our final match of the night. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dude Love defeat the Hart Foundation by pinfall in 9 minutes to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. The Hart Foundation was out first, then followed by Stone Cold, leaving the final competitor up in the air as Stone Cold jump-started things by himself. Owen and Austin worked really good together in the opening of this match, which was to be expected. And then the world's worst referee, Earl Hebner. He was definitely okay with allowing double teaming and rule breaking here. And then we got that backbeat, baby, and a view of a tapping foot.
And some poor production timing on top of it, because we cut to commercial and came back to no backbeat, no tapping foot. And I was really annoyed. I know they didn't know it at the time, but this is a big deal. And the fact that they couldn't make this one solid montage of imagery just bugs the piss out of me. They had to break to commercial. You could see Earl Hebner pacing around in the ring, talking into his little lapel microphone, not paying attention to the ring at all. Just when Austin cleared the ring, we got that backbeat again, and that's where we got the video on the Titantron. Here came Dude Love. I fucking love that music of his.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it.
It's a very generic disco song.
But where you have what sounds like it's supposed to be female backing vocalists, it really sounds like a bunch of men doing falsetto to me.
Yeah, it does.
That background, dude love, that just sounds like a bunch of guys like straining their voices trying to do soprano.
Might be going for like a Bee Gees vibe type of thing.
Yes. Yeah, good point there. While Hebner was busy doing something other than officiating, Austin was able to get a stunner on the Bulldog, giving Dude Love the chance to get the pin and the win in his debut match. Not just the win, but the tag team title in his debut here. And then the groupies came in to show Dude some love, and the episode ended with Dude Love and the groupies dancing in the ring to that Dude Love music as we faded to black. Guys, this is another one of those moments that, like, I don't quite remember happening the way it happened. I'm not sure what I thought was going to happen, and it was great to see Dude Love. I loved the debut here. I guess I just didn't expect it to happen in what was kind of a lackluster match, given the star power in it. Maybe I was just a little too focused on what I knew was going to happen and didn't give the match a fair shake. I don't know. I'm really interested to hear what you guys thought of it. Ryan, please, what do you think of this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I thought the match itself was fine. Stone Cold came out here. He kind of held his own against Bulldog and Owen here. And he was doing just a perfectly fine job of carrying this. But I think no matter what, it was going to be, especially in the future here with us, not during, contemporary time there, it was going to be overshadowed by the debut of Dude Love. And it's just what I was waiting for. And even though the match itself wasn't the most memorable in the world, just having Mick Foley come out, the foot tapping, Joe, like you said, starting with that last week, I had a smile from ear to ear seeing Mick Foley come out here and live his childhood dream. I also love to see that even though he's now playing Dude Love and not Mankind, he keeps up the acha, acha sound when he gets it. Bartlett, you said this isn't how you remembered it. I kind of remembered it perfectly. I knew for weeks now that this is what we were leading to, and I remembered this match and how everything happened because I've watched it more recent than when it was live. So I knew it was coming. It was still very memorable. I loved seeing Dude Love here, and Mick Foley is a national treasure, is all I could say. And the added tidbit of having the hot chicks come up immediately and start dancing with him, that was just that was the cherry on the top to really put this segment over. And the match could have been better, but I loved it.
Yeah, I first off don't care about the match that much at all. I mean, there's a couple things I think they could have done a little bit better, but I'm here for Dude Love. I'm here for the summer of love. Mm-hmm. Man, this was just as great as I remember. That foot tapping with the backbeat. I mean, that is. I feel like I should hate it, but I fucking love it. I've heard Mick Foley talk about it. Like I guess Vince produced this whole entire thing. I guess Vince was a huge Dude Love fan and produced all of this directly with him. So this was just awesome. I mean, even though they had the commercial break in between, but this was hampered by being on live TV. I think that it was a little rushed, a little bit more rushed than I remember anyway, but it still holds up for me. It's still gold. I love seeing all the reactions. The reactions from Austin they're perfect. His reaction is like, I can't believe I have to fucking work with this, and commentary just constantly saying like, Dude Love?
Dude Love lives!
Dude Love? Who is this? I just love those reactions. And yeah, the girls coming in at the end and Mick Foley dancing with them was just fucking... I laughed out loud. I laughed just as hard yesterday watching it as I did back in 1997. I just thought this was fantastic.
I feel like if this is anyone else but Mick Foley trying to pull it off, it just doesn't work. But the man's golden.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
Well, my highlight is the Dude Love. Everything with Dude Love, I just fucking love it. Low light, boy. What were we like? Was it an 0 for 7 or 8 or something is how we started? Pick your poison there, I guess. And Jim the Anvil Neidhart getting a match on Monday Night Raw, singles match. Again, should not happen.
A highlight, same. It's got to be the debut of Dude Love. You know, he really saved this entire episode of Raw, which goes into the low light. There were a ridiculous amount of lowlights to pick from in this one, but I'm going to have to go with them continuously using Crush in multiple segments a week at this point. I mean, it's really getting old, and he needs to get off our screens. So he's going to get the low light every chance I can do it, and Crush is my low light.
Yeah, you're right. They're really ramping up the Crush in these. My highlight, we're 3 for 3 there. Debut of Dude Love. It's just great to see the WWF really embracing Mick Foley as a wrestler and allowing him to grow outside of Mankind, you know, allowing him to maybe transition to Mick Foley, who can then be Mankind or Dude Love or Cactus Jack, you know. For my low light, the rest of the episode. Yeah. And I try not to do this too often, but I couldn't help it here. Aside from the debut of Dude Love, the rest of this episode pretty much completely sucked. There really wasn't much good.
It's like it started with the dog food. The mention of dog food brought the show down. We started hot, then we talked about dog food, and it didn't recover.
Until the very, very end.
Yeah.
That's a great call, because I think you're absolutely right. I can still feel the frown on my face as soon as the Bulldogs started talking about dog food, and I was like, what?
By the way, like, what the fuck happened to Sid? Like, Sid came out at the beginning and then nothing after that.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was like a cameo. That was it.
Yeah.
Well, Joseph, do you have any contemporary Wrasslin news from on and around July 14th, 1997 for us?
Yeah, first couple things from the other side of things. WCW. Dennis Rodman is officially a pro wrestler. He wrestled in a match at the most recent WCW pay-per-view. And another big debut for WCW on the most recent episode of Nitro. It was the Nitro Girls.
Oh.
Debuting, led by Kimberly Page on July 14th episode of Nitro. And I watched that episode, and brother, it was sizzling. Nitro Girls are here.
As hot as this episode?
As hot as the Patriot debut.
I'm the Patriot. God damn it.
That's great. WCW has Rodman, and what does the WWF have? The fucking Farmer's Daughter group.
Oh my God.
On the pay-per-view.
Hey,
you're still hating that pay-per-view.
They're big in Canada.
Dave Meltzer reports that rumors are circulating that Raw will undergo some changes and may begin taping every other show. This is being speculated since moving to a live show every week has not made enough of an impact in the weekly ratings.
Well, when you have a show like this one,
maybe it's the booking.
Meltzer really dislikes all of the stipulations on the Summerslam matches.
Yep, he's right.
He thinks that it's a pathetic attempt to try and build ratings.
It's an attempt at something.
Yeah.
Ivan Putski is 56 years old here in 97, and Meltzer says that he did not look any worse in the ring than he did during his heyday when he was one of the worst workers in the business.
And now doesn't have the physique.
Yeah, but was a major star, so once again, giving me that Ultimate Warrior vibe a little bit. Dave Meltzer is assuming that Glenn Jacobs is the best bet for the Kane role, so he is on top of his shit there.
Yeah.
He also said that the Dude Love gimmick is good, but doesn't seem like a character with a lot of longevity.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
You know, something he said here too, I thought was funny. He compared it a little bit to the Austin Powers character, particularly with the women hitting the ring and hugging and dancing with him after the match. And the first Austin Powers movie was a pretty big deal and was released like 2 months before this. So
Yeah,
makes
you
sense.
could replace his music with like that.
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Sid, we mentioned him tonight. I know you guys are going to be real excited for this. He's supposed to have a match with Vader at SummerSlam.
Jesus Christ.
Is that a dark
But-
match, please?
But don't get
Free
too
for all.
excited. Don't get too excited. Looks like it's probably not going to happen. Sid is
Okay,
still suffering from some injuries from when he tried to adjust the sunroof in that car and was in that accident. So it's believed that Brian Pillman versus Goldust will be moved up from the free-for-all to replace what would have been that Sid and Vader match. I know you guys have been really wanting the Sultan to make a big comeback here.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's been my thought for weeks now, is where the hell is
Yep.
the Sultan and Backlund been?
It has
Yeah.
been a struggle to get through these shows, and it would be much improved if the Sultan makes a comeback.
And Bob
I
Backlund.
haven't been able to sleep
Don't
at night.
forget
And Bob
Backlund.
Backlund. And Bob Backlund. He has been given clearance to return after his rib injury, so
From
that's something to be
Ahmed
excited
Johnson,
about there.
right?
Oh, yeah.
That 2x4.
Yep. And that is all.
Man, what a weird night this was. I know this isn't directly related to any of the wrestling we had here tonight, but more so to the news. Did we ever get any kind of like story or explanation as to just where the hell Isaac Yankem went?
No,
He just disappeared one day, didn't
I
he?
think we just forgot about him, like many other.
We pretended like he never
Yeah.
happened.
Well,
right?
no. Remember. Don't be silly. You know what happened to Isaac Yankem. You know who he became.
Oh, right. But
Fake
I mean,
Diesel.
the actual character, though.
Right.
Well, he became Fake Diesel. He morphed into Diesel.
A few
Somebody
dental
somebody fed
procedures
him after
later, and
He fed Yankem after midnight, and he turned
Yeah.
into Fake Diesel.
Sure.
then someone caught him on fire.
Yeah, killed his parents, made him
Mhm.
mostly disfigured. All right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin' Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most electrifying Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin' Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on July 21st, 1997, with matches featuring The Patriot,
Ooh.
Brian Welsh, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin' Raw.